Okay. You like to torture your victims?
I enjoyed it. It was a game. It's scary to a girl to have something done like that, to be so close to a knife, so to speak, pressed against you. The situations that I was seeking were more of a power trip. The power of holding someone's fate in your hands is a very powerful aphrodisiac. The adrenaline rush is like nothing. I mean, you're in complete control of somebody's destiny.
Yeah, that's it. That's the video.
Is that the video? So it's playing. Okay.
Yeah, no, that was it. That was it. That was the end.
Okay, so that was it. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Go ahead.
Hello.
That was something. Like he is.
Well, I wanted to play that first off before we get into everything else here real quick, because I wanted you guys to kind of get a feel of who we're going to be talking about tonight. Good old Richard Cottingham, also known as Santa Claus.
Like, and also just like how narcissistic is he? Like this?
He is very narcissistic, and we will get into that later too.
Yeah, well, how do you want to? First of all, good evening, Jay. I am so happy to have you here. Hello, everybody in chat. Like, it's been a while since we did a deep dive on a historical review on a serial killer the way we used to. So I'm excited about these. So, like, all right, Jay, tell me, what do you got? Because I know you got the goods on Richard Cottingham. Like,
I got lots of stuff.
What would you like to start with?
Well, actually, I got some things I'm going to read out first.
Okay.
So before we get into this, you got any housekeeping you want to do before we go any farther?
Oh, you mean put the banner on or something like that? Like
whatever, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go. There you go. That way they're not yelling at you.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody will be yelling at me in the chat. But anyway.
Got anything you want to talk about coming up before we start all this?
Joe State Hereticals will be doing a reunion 6-pack maybe on the weekend. In that we have on Saturday, we have the annual review of What the F for 2023 with Mrs. Cassandra and MC Wrecker and myself. That should be fun. And Sunday will be Bear and B. Not really a lot. In the last chapter of Hitchhiker's Guide will be out this week also. How about you? You got anything coming on?
Well, the poll's up. If you guys seen the poll when you looked into the chat, I'm going to want to try to work on a video this weekend.
Ooh, yes, and that reminds me, we've got the poll up there for you to work on. Like you're gonna let them tell you what to work on, aren't you?
Who do they want? Ed Kemper or Ted Bundy? And I'm not sure who's in the lead. Bundy's in the lead right now.
Bundy's in the lead right now. And we've got like 6 votes in. 11 people here. Come on, people. Vote. Like as we go. If you can.
Vote as you go.
Yep. Well,
so yeah, by the end of the show, we'll figure out who it is, and I'll work on it. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to change it up from the way I've done it before, so it may take a little bit longer to get into because I got some different ideas I want to go through.
Okay.
Especially with people like Bundy and Kemper, because both of them gave interviews.
They did a lot of
So I want to cut in. I want to go in and I want to cut in a lot of interviews.
Mm-hmm. And if I remember, you have a thing for Kemper. Like I can't wait to hear your stuff on Kemper. Yeah.
Kemper is my. I know a lot about Bundy too, but Kemper has always been the one that's fascinated me the most. So. Yeah. I voted Kemper.
She said, and go with her vote because that's the way voting works, right? Just like go with whatever Juju said.
So.
Oh God. Yeah.
So that's so like I said, I've got some ideas on a different way to do the video than I normally do. So it may take a little bit longer. I'm going to try to work on it this weekend. And see where I get because it's going to take a while to do some research and get what I want typed out. So, but it will be in definitely before the end of next week. I would imagine.
Oh, that's very exciting. I'm excited to have content come back on your channel again, your True Serial channel, which is listed below. Everybody, just click that link, and go check
Hmm.
if you like these historicals, because he's really good at it. There's some good stuff on that channel. But all right, so let's
So
get
you
back to Killer
ready?
Santa Claus guy. Okay,
All right.
it's like,
So let me set the scene for you.
okay.
On December 7th, 1979, New York City firemen responded to an alarm at a seedy hotel on the West 42nd Street, not far from Times Square. As the firefighters pulled up to the curb, they could see flames licking the windows on the fourth floor. Once inside, they were hit with a wall of thick black smoke. There was something else to smell that just shouldn't have been there. A really strong smell of iron.
Mhm.
So strong that one firefighter said they could taste it on their tongue. The smell was also mixed with that of decay at the end of the hall. The firefighters saw a woman collapse right outside her hotel room door. The firefighter ran to her, hoping it wasn't too late. In smoke that thick, it can only take a few minutes to coat your lungs, and the blaze grew around them. The
Wow.
firefighter reached for the woman crumpled on the floor. He grabbed her shoulder, pulled her over to admit his CPR, and noticed she was charred and covered in thin, bloody scratches. Chills up his spine. He screamed as he was about to give her CPR because the woman had no head.
Uh-huh. Well, that's a scene to be set. Yep.
Yeah.
You know, that is
So, yeah.
wow. And this is how he earned the nickname the Torso Killer, because of what he did to the bodies after.
Yep.
If I recall, his method of demise is strangulation, right?
Yes. Yep.
Amongst torture and assault, and then strangulation, and then he mutilates the bodies after, which is how he got the nickname. Yeah.
Sometimes, not all the time.
Oh, just the ones he got nailed for in the murder, and he's doing his time for. But yeah, how many bodies are they trying to claim to him?
How many have they? Okay. So, he is admitted to 18, no, 23, because he admitted to 5 recent, not that long ago. So, 23 bodies. He's that they were pretty sure they can link him to. He was convicted on 5. He says there's probably somewhere excess of 100 bodies.
Right. Well, they're thinking 11 that match his profile so far,
Yeah, but
right?
they haven't been able to. But other than his say so, they haven't been able to link at all. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a little.
And
Yeah,
he's claiming hundreds. Like, what an
he's
egomaniac.
claiming
Like,
he claims
yeah.
he says over 100 bodies.
Well, Santa's got a big ego there. I'll tell you that. Like, yeah. Well, even just the way he talks, it's creepy. Like, I can't watch him. He's kind of creepy to me.
So
Yeah.
before we get into the killings that he did and why he did it, we got to understand who Richard was.
Mm-hmm.
So William Cottingham, his father, was a quiet and brooding man, an executive at the Metropolitan Life Insurance. He was proud of his impressive career in life, and he had provided for his wife, Anna, and their 3 children. The family started out in the Bronx and were the very picture of 1940s Americana in 1946.
Mm-hmm.
They welcomed their first child, a son, a sweet little boy named Richard, and they would go on to have 2 daughters. Where the Cottinghams, where the Cottingtons doted on their children.
Mm-hmm.
By all accounts, their childhood were uneventful, except for one thing.
Yeah, this is
Except
the
for
thing,
one
though,
thing.
right there. Yeah.
At the age of 4, Richard was struck by a car and suffered brain damage to his frontal lobe. Now, as far as everyone knew, he made a full recovery, but historian Peter Vronsky isn't so sure about that. So there are a few things we need to go before I delve in a little farther. What is, and we've said this time and time again, what is one thing a lot of serial killers have in common with each other?
Well, usually some kind of childhood like trauma or something.
Childhood trauma. Now we
Yep.
can rule childhood trauma out because we know, other than the car accident, it was a very normal childhood. There was
Yeah,
no
it's
signs of abuse, nothing like that.
and that's by the profile. That's by the professionals looking at it. But Richard, listen, Richard himself tries to make it like he's been fascinated with like bondage porno since he was very young, and they also said he had difficulty as a teenager. Like he didn't have a lot of friends, and he's very close with his mother. So like maybe not young childhood, but I'm wondering like what was going on over there actually, because it
But-
doesn't. I mean, the one thing that Richard Cottingham actually admits, the one famous quote that he made is he's got a problem with women.
Yep, that was the when they arrested him. That's what he said. That was the first words out of his mouth. I have a problem with women.
Yeah, I have a problem with women. That's how they lose their heads. Yeah, I guess. Like, because what he does afterwards is bad enough. He kills them, he assaults them, he tortures them, he strangles them, and then he just can't let it be. Then he starts cutting them up and stuff. Like, it's a little excessive. Yeah.
So Juju hit it on the head. Head trauma is one that is linked to a lot of serial killers. Not as many as you would think, though. Only about 29%. So a series of interviews and research conducted by journalist Hugh Antworth cited a study that the link between childhood trauma and psychopathy or psychopathology is only about 29% of serial killers.
Right.
Which those 29, they were shown to be accident prone. Children citing head trauma is the leading energy, and in case Richards with the frontal lobe have impulse control problems. Have problems with some of them have problems problem solving skill issues, and a lot of them are responsible for aggression. That all comes from damage to the frontal lobe.
Right, because and
also
also that's where right and wrong, like you can have serious issues with discerning what is appropriate or misappropriate or inappropriate behaviors. Yeah.
So it also states that the frontal lobe is also one of the easiest parts of the brain to injure and distort. The study suggests that in some cases, psychopathic behavior is a defense mechanism meant to protect the brain from further trauma. Peter Vronsky calls this phenomenon injury-induced psychopathy, which he believes helps to explain the distorted behavior that Richard ended up developing.
Murder? I don't know about it. But like, how does that protect your brain? Like killing other people? Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's
it's not so much the killing; it's the aggressiveness.
Oh, you're getting out all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, the controllingness, things like that.
Okay.
So, one more thing we're going to cover on this part, and then we can move on because after this we're going to move on to his modus operandi.
Right.
And then. Once we do that, we'll discuss one more thing, and then we'll actually get into the actual.
Well, say what you want to say, because then I got like 2 questions for you before you move on, because they have to do with the.
Okay. I might answer them in this next part. So.
I don't know.
Okay. So a recent study conducted in the University of Glasgow, this was from 2017, and published in the Journal of Violent and Aggressive Behavior, looked into the neurodevelopment and psychological risk factors in serial killers and mass murderers. It was the first ever analysis of all available literature, books, journals, legal files, news reports, electronic documents about serial killers and mass murderers. Our findings tentatively indicate that these extreme forms of violence may be the result of highly complex interaction of biological, psychological, and sociological factors.
Wow.
Potentially, a significant portion of mass or serial killers may have had neurodevelopment disorders such as ASD, which stands for autism spectrum disorder, or a head injury. Out of the 239 eligible killers in the study, 28 were found to have had definite, highly probable, or possible ASD. To compare that, only 1 in 100 people in the UK have ASD. So 28% of 239 compared to 1%, 1 out of 100.
Wow.
So yeah, so 21% had suffered. So we knew that 28% had possible ASD, 21% had definite or suspected head injury, whilst 55% of those with ASD or head injury had experienced traumatic stressors such as significant traumatic events during childhood, violent or sexual abuse, death of a close family member, parental divorces, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Claire Ailey from the Institute of Health and Wellbeing at the University of Glasgow led the study and explains the significance of these findings. This is the interesting part. Everything I had interesting, but this is the part I found interesting the most. The report, which is the first of its kind to look at all the available materials around serial killers and mass murderers, identified that a complex interplay between neurodevelopment problems and psychological factors are the most likely to lead to incidents of this kind. The suggestion being that if this combination of characteristics is discovered within an individual, that person could be predisposed to developing into a serial killer. Having such knowledge could lead to preventative measures to help stop mass killings.
And like Mark Caesar is a good question about that. If that's what led to it, like what actual treatments like could they use? Like was that why lobotomies? This is one of the reasons lobotomies were performed or used to be performed as much, to prevent the deviant behavior once they knew about the deviant behavior.
So what I would suggest in nowadays terms, I would probably, my guess would be some kind of a drug, like an antidepressant type of situation, drugs, counseling, behavioral, I can't say behavioral reconstruction, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, like the therapies that they do, cognitive behavioral training. Yes, they do, to develop good habits. There's also anti-aggression medications that actually slow the response down, which, you know, to help you from going over the top. But yeah, I mean, but it's hard to tell because here's the one thing I wanted to ask you about, Jay. Like in the 70s, he got married. He had 3 children.
Yeah.
Like, and he was living a normal life until until like 78, after the birth of their 3rd child, 2 boys and a girl. His wife actually filed for divorce on the grounds of abandonment and mental cruelty, because after the birth of the 3rd child, he refused to have anything to do with her. He was staying out into the early morning, leaving her with no household funds, wouldn't no longer shared the marital bed. He like completely cut her off, But
you're kind of right, but you missed a key factor here.
She actually withdrew it.
Yep. Well, there's two. Okay, there's 2 key factors. One, yes, she withdrew for some reason, unbeknownst, because she never mentions why.
Well, he got arrested, and that's when she withdrew it, which is odd.
That was what you left out at the beginning. He was arrested for attempted rape. That's when she filed for divorce, citing violent behavior, withdrew the divorce, picked the kids up, and moved to Arizona.
Oh, see, they didn't list the attempted. They didn't list that in this, what I'm reading about the divorce. They didn't even bother to list that. But they are saying about her filing, but then they say she automatically withdrew it once he was arrested in 1980, and then she finally completed her divorce after he was convicted.
Yeah, it wasn't until he was actually convicted that she'd go through and actually get the divorce.
Yeah, that's like so bizarre. And the other thing, like, I wanted to make notice, he worked for an insurance company. Like, that's a little okay. And worse than that, he had like Rodney Alcala at the same insurance company with him. They didn't know each other. He's a fugitive molester of children and serial killer in the same New York area.
Yeah, they actually. So that's kind of a little bit of a miss there, because it depends on where you listen to, what you read, depends on whether or not Richard and Alcala knew each other or they didn't know each other.
Well, they're both claiming they didn't. That there's no evidence that they can find that they're familiar with each other,
Yeah, but other places I've read and I've listened to said they did know each other. They just
Yeah.
didn't talk very often.
Well, they're just saying that because of the proximity, they were in the same insurance company in the same year. Okay. They worked there for years together. The fact that one was a computer operator and the other, and the other one also became big on the computer courses, the fact that they wouldn't have run up to each other was very unlikely. Very unlikely. Because usually it's one small department that runs that, right, Jay? It's like, so it's not like they were both agents and never ran into each other. Hey, Rabbits. Hey, Raven. Good to see you both. Oh, I saw your mom joined. Hi, Crone. Like, hey,
yeah.
Hey, it's so nice to see you again.
Well, you mentioned that he worked at life insurance. Here's the thing. His father, if we remember right, I told you earlier, worked for MetLife.
Yep.
He worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yeah, he went the insurance. Yeah, he went the health insurance way,
which,
so to speak.
Which caused an actual big rift between his father and him, and is why Richard moved out.
See, more.
Because the arguments they had were because William found it very disrespectful that he would go work for the competition. So that's why Richard ended up moving out.
I don't see any other questions in regards to his younger history before the assaults.
There's not a lot. He had a propensity. So when him and his father would drive into the city, because at this point, mind you, they lived in the Bronx, and they both worked, because he did work for MetLife for a little bit, so they'd ride into work together. When they passed through Times Square, Richard would get excited because he was very into dark brown hair and, as he put it, voluptuous bosoms.
Oh, okay.
So. But it wasn't until he moved out and moved into the city that's where his things started to go awry, I should say.
Wow. Yeah, this is like, wow. Yeah, it's like, hey, Turtle Moose. It's good to see you. Thanks for the orders. All right, so where do we want to go from here? We've done like his history. He doesn't necessarily present as a typical serial killer with his history.
He doesn't really, with the exception of the
normal life that you don't suspect.
Yeah, with the exception of the head injury, he doesn't fit your typical what we normally see in a lot of serial killers. He doesn't have what they call the big three: the bedwetting, the arson, and the torturing of pets. He wasn't military, which it pops up on a lot of them too. A lot of them join the military. One of the things, though, is he is very narcissistic.
Very.
Extremely narcissistic. So let's get into his modus operandi, shall we?
Yes, please, because that's my favorite part that you do. Yes.
So Cottingham targeted petite brunettes in their late to mid 20s and often prostitutes. Now, before I go a little bit, because there's a reason why he picked prostitutes, because he felt prostitutes were beneath him. They didn't matter. What you'll see in a lot of sexual serial killers that do things like that is they don't view sex workers as people worth arguing about or worth talking about or even worth noticing. They're there to be used and abused and, well, killed.
And that's very common. He's classified this way because he would have relationship with him before he strangled, like during the process of the torture and all, that there was not consensual stuff going on. So definitely it's a sexual based issue there for the serial killer in that. And it's more common. Isn't that the most common one? Don't you think? From what we've been covering.
Well, but their attitude towards
women.
Yeah. A lot of them. Well, some of them would target prostitutes that look like a certain person they were trying to actually
Be with.
assault or kill or
Yeah.
be with, things like that. So in his
Like
case, he just happened to like, yeah.
he has a type
So
for yeah.
so he would solicit the sex workers. When he would come up to them, when he'd find one he'd like, he would come up to them and he'd show them 2 wads of cash. And back in those days, the sex workers would trust men with cash because they knew they weren't going to get gypped.
Mm-hmm.
Others, he would manage to, in some of his victims, he would meet them at a bar where he'd spike their drugs with what is called Tuinol, which was a
Mm-hmm.
date rape drug used before Rohypnol,
Yes.
and then take them out somewhere secluded, usually to a motel, sometimes in their car, where he would bind them, gag them with duct tape, brutally rape, torture, and stab them before killing them by strangulating them
Strangulation.
with some type of ligature.
So
Presumably, it is said to make identification harder, he would sometimes cut off their heads and hands. That's not true. That only happened with 2 victims at that one time.
right, and he got that name because of because of where it was and that he did that. Yeah.
Now,
he had quite
after
a few
those
names.
after those 2 victims where he dismembered them, he actually, they say his victim and his amount of torture actually became worse. I know what's worse than cutting off a head and hands. Well, he would torture them severely by biting them, scratching them, cutting around their breasts, in one case, he actually removed a lady's breast. Another case, he bit a woman's breast so hard he almost bit her nipple off.
Yeah, this is quite the aggression. And this is like the torture part. Like that's the part that really unsettles me. He seriously has an issue with women. Mark has a good question here, though. He goes, what is it with murderers who commit murder after being intimate with the person? Could it be inspired by a feeling of inadequacy? And then Juju chimed in, or perhaps vulnerability.
Well, okay. So this was actually brought up on 2 different podcasts I'd listened to, because I listen to podcasts and I read a bunch of articles when I'm researching people. In Richard's case, it wasn't about feeling inadequate or feeling vulnerable. It was about power.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about how much power he could control over his victims. One of his victims, which is the one that he got caught with, he actually would cut her over and over again and strangle her and hit her and bite her until she passed out, and then he would wake her up with cold water and do it over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
That is always, that's a power grab. That's his narcissism taking control.
Like every part of that is you talking about the relations without consent. That's a power play right there. Then you got the torture. That's a power play right there. It's like, and even what he does with the body afterwards, it's like he's not done. Like he still wants to be in control. Like even though you did, it's awful. Like it's the ego, Jay. Like wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
so 2 things here. Juju says it always leads back to power, and a lot of times it does. And Raven actually said something. She said it could be fulfilling an urge and then feeling unclean after. That actually happened. There was a couple serial killers that were like that. The Angel of Death comes to mind. One of the Angels of Death, where he would feel that power, he would get to the point where he would kill his victims, and then he'd feel so remorse for them that he would do things to make it so they, he would stage the bodies so they weren't so awful to look at.
Now, Rabbit says this is with the hands and the heads. Could that be preventing identification? Don't know if hands and heads were on the scene, though. It could make it like null and void.
The head and the hands weren't, from Richard's own mouth, were an attempt to disguise the body, because he was actually seen with the one lady that we know of the 2 victims. He was actually seen with her in a bar earlier that day.
Right.
Now, the heads and the hands have never been found, and he will not tell anybody where they're at. So they were not on the scene. He took them with him.
And what would he do with them? Like, why? Like,
From
wow.
what he says, what he said is, you'll never find them. So yeah.
That's like a mob move. I agree with Rabbi's. It's a total mob move. Like and because he was identified, but these were the only two that he did that to, too. Like the only ones that he actually did that to, because he was afraid of being identified. He did not address the torsos that way for the other murders, correct?
So another thing that he did was he took trophies and jewelry and other personal belongings.
Yeah.
What do I always say?
Don't take a souvenir.
Don't take a trophy.
Don't take a souvenir. You're going to get busted. Yeah.
That's the only way they linked him to the victims he got convicted for, is he actually had their personal belongings.
Wow. It did say that they're pretty sure he did 4 prostitutes and a med technician, right? Like there's 5 that they definitely have linked him to. Now he got prosecuted on 3, right? He's in jail. He was in jail for murder for 3 of them. And he actually admitted to the other 2, didn't he? Oh God.
So yeah. And Mark Caesar says, leave your mobile phone at home.
Yes, like no trophies. Leave your mobile phone at home, and don't talk to the police. Yeah, that's like Rex that comes to mind. Like I gotta say, he did not pass his serial killer 101 class. Let me just tell you, Rex Erman.
Like, he'd have taken the class, he'd have passed. So
yeah, I know.
Richard's first known victim was when he was at the age of 21. And that was Nancy Vogel. Now, Nancy Vogel was the med tech you were talking about. She never made it to work. Her husband actually was the one that called because they couldn't get a hold of her. He was actually out of town at the time. So to come back and find out his wife was missing. She was missing for 3 days over the weekend. She was actually found by 2 12-year-old girls who were upstairs in the house and looked outside on the street and thought what they seen was a mannequin sitting in the car. It was actually Nancy Vogel. She had been strangled. She had all her clothes had been taken off. She was actually covered in a blanket, and all her clothes were actually neatly folded, laying in the seat beside her.
That's
now
so bizarre.
That's the last thing I wanted to talk about. Now, would you consider that organized killer?
Now he kind of folded the clothes. Well,
yep. Okay. Now, would you consider him a disorganized killer in terms of the bodies with the missing heads and hands?
I still think that's organized, because he's still in the pursuit of not getting caught and thought. Like, I actually think he is quite organized, actually.
So, according to, and some of you may recognize this name, Roy Hazelwood, actually in his in his in-depth groundbreaking series with serial predators, along with FBI agents John Douglas and Robert Ressler. Those of you who are in the game know those names. Organized criminals, according to the classification scheme, are antisocial, often psychopathic, but they know right from wrong. They're not insane and show no remorse sometimes, but they're also organized crimes that are premeditated and carefully planned, so very little evidence is normally found at the scene. They are also organized killers, are likely to be above average intelligence, attractive, married, or living with a domestic partner, employed, educated, skilled, cunning, and controlled. They have some kind of degree of social grace, maybe even charming, and often talk and seduce their victims into being captured. Who's that sound like?
Oh God. Well, it definitely sounds like him. It also sounds like Rex Harriman, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, that profile about him being professional and charming, they
Mhm.
definitely nailed his profile. Um,
Yeah,
the sloppiness, I do think that Cunningham is much more less sloppy than Rex Harriman,
yeah,
actually.
Cottingham. Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely. So we'll get into how he got caught later, but I want to go through a couple more victims here. So
Mhm.
in '68, he killed Jackie Harp, strangled her. If this is the one, I got to check my things because is this the
Mhm.
one?
Yeah. I got
Yeah,
I
okay.
got a
Yeah. Jacqueline Harp, she was 13 years old.
a
Now,
child.
she was strangled on her way home from band practice
Mm-hmm.
with her sling from her bag. So people don't freak out. She was not sexually assaulted.
Nope.
She was just strangled. I know that's I'm like, oh, yeah. Irene Blassie, who would be the next victim, found her face down in 4 feet of water where she had been strangled with a wire.
And she was
Uh,
young. She was only
yeah,
18.
she was only 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the next one was Denise Falaska, also in '69,
Mm-hmm.
who disappeared while walking from a friend's home. She was found by the side of the road in a cemetery where she was strangled with the chain of her crucifix and then dumped from the killer's car.
Right. She was
Now,
only 15, and she was from the shore, Westwood, in New Jersey.
yeah.
Yeah.
So with those three, that's a whole different scenario to what we know of Richard. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't prostitutes. They weren't, his age or older. They were all young and they were only strangled. There was no sexual assault to these.
Well, the first two weren't because Nancy Vogel, I don't see her. I didn't know that she was listed as also being a med tech because the first med tech, her name was Marianne De La Sala, but that was after her ship. Oh no, that's not the med tech. That's the one who's like 17 years old who was the ShopRite employee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like between the two of them, they don't know like which one of these was first, although they're thinking that Marianne was first because it was like in the beginning of the year, and then the med tech in Ridgewood, you know. But none of these are prostitutes. Like these are all,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So the with the children, sorry, I overread myself.
no, that's okay.
I think that was just a power
Mm-hmm.
grab. He needed that power. He needed that killing, and they believed those were just crimes of opportunity. They were there,
Mm-hmm.
but like you said, there's still nothing to connect him.
Yeah.
At this point, the police still don't believe they've got a serial killer on their hands.
No.
They haven't made any connections.
No,
Um,
and with the
Mark,
younger ones, there doesn't seem to be, although the police keep saying that there is some kind of sexual inference from, mostly because Denise Velasco, they believe that he was trying to force oral on her, like having her do, or it was like killed her out of dissatisfaction. That's what they're claiming anyway. But how they would know that since they're not there, I do not know.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
And the other ones, their clothes were disheveled, but nothing. There was no evidence of assault. So,
mhm.
like, this is what kind of disturbs me because they're all like younger. He's still killing them. Like, for what reason is he kidnapping? And he's kind of you must know he must be doing some kind of mental torture and abuse, power play on them at the time.
Mhm.
And it's stuff, but the rest of it's not there. And the way he progresses is kind of scary. Like, why he's going after people so young in the beginning, I don't get this at all, actually. Because he has children. Like, he's like,
Yeah, but I mean, there's quite a few serial killers that had families.
all
So
I have to say is whoever he dated in high school, like you really pissed him off.
he was
that was
not.
weird.
So
He
in
didn't
high
even
school,
date. He didn't even he was a loner.
He
Like,
was a
so,
loner. He went to track and field for sports so he could be alone. The friends he did have, he was very bossy, very it's
mm-hmm.
my way or no way type of thing with those. Um, yeah, so he, yeah, there's like you said, there was nothing to tie him to a reason why he was like this.
No. Yeah.
So where are we at? His next known victim was Marianne Carr, um, and that was in December of '77.
Mm-hmm.
Where's that one? I gotta find it. Hang on a second.
Well, no, there was the two. There was Kelly and Pryor, because that was in '74, right?
Oh, I did miss Kelly and Pryor. Yep. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
There's two girls, 17 and 16.
Yep.
The only reason I know is because these are all the New Jersey ones. Like, it's like, and I'm like
Montville,
going,
New Jersey.
wow, like I didn't even know this was going
Yeah.
on at the time.
They were
Now
both
these
raped.
one, yep, they
Yeah.
were. These two were bound and naked and tortured and face down, and they had been beaten and assaulted. And this is where the literature marks in their necks suggest that they had been strangled, for the demise. So that part of his modus operandi comes into play with the strangulation. Because only one of the other younger ones was actually they say was actually raped, but she was legal age. She was 18. Like, she was 18. So, like, I don't know, like, with like these two are 16 and 17, and he went there, but with the others he didn't. I don't know. Something stopped him or something happened. Boom.
I'm sorry. So yeah, the next one was Marianne Carr, where that was a '77. She was raped, tortured, beaten, and then once again fatally strangled. After that, in '78, he had two victims in '78. The first one was in March. That was Karen Schlitt. Attempted rape, left for dead in a sewer, but she was rescued. Now, this was the first of two rapes in that month. I'm sorry, in that year that he was charged for, but the witnesses never made it to trial, so he got off.
That's right.
The other one was in October in Hackensack, New Jersey. So we went one in New York and now one in New Jersey. That was Susan Geiger, 19. She was raped and he attempted to kill her, but she got away. She told them it was him. They charged him, but she never showed up to court either. So, but it was dropped because it was he said, she said, because there was no physical evidence linking him to either one of them. Now, this is about the time where Mrs. Cottingham started to get a little worried, little trying to figure out what's going on, because we hadn't see, why didn't the witness go to court? We don't know. I couldn't find any information on why they never made it to court. It just all I could find was they didn't show up. So Mrs. Cottingham, I never remember what her name is. But he had his office in the basement, and it was always locked up, and no one could go down there. Don't go down there. Don't go down there. That's his private space. When he would come home from work, late hours of the night, that's where he would go. He'd be down there for all hours at a time. So when he was arrested the last time, she actually went downstairs and got into the room, and what she seen there disturbed her.
Yep.
There were magazines and movies of torture porn, BDSM. He had BDSM outfits and BDSM toys. He had women's clothing and women's purses, and she didn't know what to do with it, so she just closed the door and backed away.
Right. And her first name is, by the way, is Janet.
Janet, that's right.
Janet.
Yeah, my mom says always the first sign something is up. My basement, don't go there.
Exactly. In the Rex Harriman, like basement,
Yeah.
like locked up room, like, don't go in there. Same thing. Too often. I don't go in the basement. Oh no.
Was it?
Like there's really nothing funny about this guy, especially the age that he's attacking. His problem with women is younger, attractive women. You know, he's got a type. You know,
Mm. So I'm
well,
trying to find because this next part
and by the
actually
way,
ties
yeah,
to one of the other victims. Is kind of one of the reasons why they get. I'm trying to go ahead, boy. I
yeah.
gotta try to find it. Go ahead.
They call this kind of serial killer based on his age group when he started in ephebophilic serial killer based on mid to late or post adolescent victims because of the ages of 18, 19, 17, 16, 15. There are older ones that he actually, killed, obviously, but they were saying because of the early stages, that's what they were labeling it out. He's actually considered one of the worst serial killers in U.S. history, even though he only got really nailed on a few of them. Well, and I found that odd because there are killers on record that had many more bodies. I think it's the type of crimes that is the reason that they're doing this. He killed 9, attempted to kill another 4. Well, he says 100. And I
Yeah,
don't know. And he's crazy enough that I believe the number could definitely be more than 11, but
I'm sorry, I can't find it. So the
that's okay.
Travelodge, the Travelodge Motor Inn killings. This is where we find
Oh,
the bodies that we
mm-hmm,
talked about at the beginning. The one body they could identify was Dida Gadarzi, 22, and the other one is an unidentified victim they believe to be around the age of 16.
mm,
That was in December of 79. Now, that was in New York, at the Travelodge Motor Inn. Okay. So that was in 79. Now, mind you, he started in 67.
yep.
Now we're at 79.
We only have one incidence of we have a couple of illegal things that he did: driving under the influence in New York, shoplifting in 72. But in 73, there were charges put on him for robbery, sodomy, and abuse of a prostitute, but that case was tossed.
Mm-hmm.
That witness, and that's the one you're talking about, no witness, right?
Yeah, that was one of them. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there was
Yeah.
2 of them.
So, like, he's had some skirmishes with law enforcement. Like, they know he's a bad dude at this point,
Now,
right?
because you bring up because that what you just brought up actually ties into how he got caught.
Mm-hmm.
Because up until this point, they didn't know who he was. He had no record. There was no fingerprints. There was no DNA, which was at that time was either non-existent or just coming into the fold. We're looking at 79.
Mm-hmm.
But there was nothing to identify him to any of these victims until he did his little drunk driving episode, literally like you see on the movies where
Mm-hmm.
they drive up on the sidewalk in the middle of New
Mm-hmm.
York. Now that will come in later because that's how he gets caught. So in May of 1980, Valerie Ann Street, 19, was beaten and fatally strangled,
Mm-hmm.
where he bit and cut at her breast. In May of May 12th. So May 5th to May 12th in Teaneck, New Jersey, Pamela Weisenfeld, where he had attempted to kill her,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't happen, which he beat and repeatedly beat her and bit her, but she couldn't identify him.
Mm-hmm.
May 15th, 3 days later, Jean Renner, 25, was raped, repeatedly stabbed, tortured, and then fatally strangled, burned, and this is where he removed both of her breasts and put them on the table next to her. That, along with the head and the hands, is where they come up with the New York Ripper. Is why he got the moniker the New York Ripper. It's because of the removal of the breasts, the decapitations
Yep.
of the hands. Now, Leslie Ann Odell in May 22nd in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. This is the last one. This is the one that I was telling you about where he had the victim where he would bring her back to life, wake her back up,
Mm-hmm.
splash it. This is her. This is Leslie Ann Odell. She was 18. He beat her, raped her, sodomized her, non-fatally slashed her over and over with a knife, bit her breast, punched her, kicked her, things like that. Now, what happened? This is this was at a hotel, and somebody heard her screaming,
Mm-hmm.
so they called the cops. Cops show up, knock on the door. She opens the door. He's standing behind her. They can't see him. They're asking her if everything's fine. She's given the yes, everything's fine type of thing. But you could tell, they definitely could tell there was something wrong. So they said, okay, have a good night. They turn around and walk away. She closes the door. Now, in Richard's words, he said he was ecstatic. He had done it again. He had gotten away with it. They were never going to catch him. What he didn't know is they knew something was going on. So they come back to the door, bang on the door again, but this time they had called for backup. When they banged on the door again, police open up. He escapes out the hotel window, running down the pathway where he gets stopped and caught by the other patrol that they had called in. They tackled him, get him down, handcuff him, and that's where he goes, I have a problem with women.
Mm-hmm.
He got caught with Pam. With Leslie. They linked him to Pam because of a fingerprint on the handcuff that she had, which linked him back to the drunk driving incident.
Yep, because he was everything was on file.
So where he was lucky up until this point, he made a mistake because he let her go. She was still handcuffed, and that's how they get him.
Damn. There you go. And there's still one body that is still a Jane Doe. Is that one still the Jane Doe from the twin?
Still
from the
Jane
fire?
Doe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, he's just this one. I don't have anything good to say about it. There's nothing like it's too close to home. There's too many bodies all around where I live that I didn't know about. Like this one, I didn't even know this name actually. Like this one was so under the radar for me. Well, I'm that they finally caught him, fine. But that was a hell of a mess too. Like there was problems with all of that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
so he was convicted on 3 murders in New York State, sentenced to 25 years to life for each murder to run consecutively. He was additionally convicted of multiple murders and other crimes in the state of Jersey. I'm not sure. Oh, I click on that one. The Jersey census says click here. Oh, that's right. Not found. I couldn't look that one up. So in August of 2022, now mind you, this is last year, so he is still alive. I think he's 77. Officials negotiated a non-prosecution agreement before corroborating and accepting his confession to the murder of Lorraine McGraw, who he had beaten and strangled to death in March of 1970. Her nude body was found 2 days later along a hiking trail in an old Camp Bluefields water tower in New York. In December of 2022, he was convicted of Diane Cusick's 1968 murder and admitted to killing 4 additional women. That's for Mary Beth Hines, Laverne Moy, Sheila Hyman, and Maria Emeritus Nevis in Long Island, New York, between 72 and 73. Interesting fact, Maria Neves, her body was actually found by the fence at the hotel that he got caught at. So it's one of those returning to the scene of the crimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's quite interesting when they did arrest him. in 80 at that hotel, in the hallway of that hotel at gunpoint, by the way. Like, he didn't get that.
So-
He had on him handcuffs, a leather gag, 2 slave collars, a switchblade, replica pistols, in a stockpile of prescription pills. He had in his controlled substance to knock these women out secobarbital, amabarbital, and diazepam. Like, on, he was loaded. Like, he was definitely loaded to do some nasty stuff. Like, all of that was used against him in court.
So at this point, he is confessing.
Mhm.
He throughout the years, he has trickled out details to his murders to the detectives to help close some cold cases. But the 2 cases he refuses to talk about are 17-year-old Mary Pryor and 16-year-old Lorraine Kelly. He absolutely will not talk about those 2.
And those are the 2 New Jersey girls, face down, bound, gagged, naked, definitely assaulted and
Yeah.
beaten to death, and that he strangled. Like, the only thing he didn't do is take off their hands and head. Right.
After many, many years of Detective Angelotti dogging at him, he actually finally confessed in April of 2022 to kidnapping to 2 young girls, and raping them for days before drowning them in a bathtub.
And they're saying that it was those 2 girls. Well, he's not giving the
No,
names.
he confessed to those 2. That's
Okay.
years of being dogged.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Because
and
the reason why he had actually gave that and told him about it is because Angelotti and Cottingham had actually formed this kind of a friendship over the years.
well, that's how they got, like, that non-prosecution agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that actually got another couple of 4 women identified is done by him. Heinz, Moy, Hyman, and Neves, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they happened between 72 and 73.
He managed to give the confession to Anzoli only because Angelotti was only days away from retirement and leaving the force, and he wanted to close this case.
It's so many times we hear about law enforcement forming these relationships with these serial killers long term, who try to get more and more information for the families in the missing, and to try to solve some of the unsolved bodies that they have. I have to give them a lot of credit. Like, it is a lifelong commitment.
It is.
That they go on. The unsolved go with them, like, in everything that they do.
So Angelotti believed that Cottingham delayed so long because he enjoyed his relationship with the detective. He had said, "I know once I give you that case, Pryor and Kelly, I won't ever see you again."
There's the narcissistic. He needs to be important to people. He didn't want to not exist.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, you brought up somebody when we were talking before, Jennifer Weiss.
Yeah, that's one of the Mary Beth Hines, Jennifer Weiss. I don't know.
Before we even started, you were talking about somebody who developed a friendship with him. Were you talking about the cop?
No,
because I said I have something on that one too.
No, go right ahead. Like, nope,
Okay.
I don't know of a cop named Weiss on this.
No, this isn't a cop. Jennifer Weiss is the daughter of Didi Godarzi, one of the women that were beheaded.
Oh God! Look, nope.
Oh, so you don't know about this one?
No, you're creeping me out now. Now he's like friends with the victim's family. What?
There's a reason. So
Shades of Rex Harriman calling his sister. Like,
as the daughter of a murder victim, it's hard to imagine forgiving the killer, but that's just what Jennifer did. She said everybody deserves to be forgiven for things in life. The magnitude of what he did is unfathomable, but I became friends with Richard for my mom's sake and for my quest. The only reason is because she befriending him because she wanted to know the location of her mother's head to potentially close other unsolved cases. She sought closure. The question and her recovery from breast cancer provided Jennifer with the courage to pursue the truth. She said, I wanted desperately to find Dee Dee's skull, and that was the driving force behind what I'm doing.
Wow.
So, where she has no insurance, what he told her was real because she'd gathered bits and pieces of the truth, later saying that she did it for her mother who had lost her daughter, for mothers who have lost their daughters, and for her own mother.
Wow. She was brave, actually.
So Cottingham wrote to her one time, I just don't know what to say to you or how to say it. I can only tell you what's in my heart and pray that you believe me. I am truly and deeply sorry, so very sorry, for all the pain that I have brought to your life. Now, there's a problem with that. Do you think he's sincere in that?
No, they don't.
I don't think so either, because he is a known narcissist. And to put a little icing and a little check mark on the cake, she is a petite brunette with voluptuous bosoms.
Well, there you go. So he was just trying to get closer to her.
Exactly. It's one of those where he is still chasing what he was chasing. If you know what I mean. So yeah, that's Richard Cottingham.
I know why I don't know the name Weiss. It's because it's different than her mother's name, which was Godarzi. Yeah.
Because she was adopted. Really, really, I think she was like, she was told she was adopted when she was 4. So she was adopted before then. And then she didn't actually go trying to search out who her mother was till she was like 23. Because she wanted to get that. She finally wanted to figure out who her mother was and things like that. So, yeah, I would say she knew she was adopted, but she didn't know who her mother was. It wasn't until later she found out that she was one of his victims.
Well, when I think about what he wrote to her, that last sentence, I'm truly and deeply sorry, so very sorry for all the pain I've brought into your life. It's just, it's the overemphasis on the sorrow part, especially since he already acknowledged that she probably won't believe him and he doesn't know what to say. That he's gonna pray that she believes him. Like, he already knows she's not going to. It's almost like he's celebrating the pain, actually, to me, at the end, because he just had to put that in there. He just had to.
Yeah, there's
look what I did to your life. Not I'm sorry for taking your mother's life, but look at all the pain I brought into your life. Like, there's a bit of control going on there for me. Maybe because I already know he's a control freak, but I don't know.
Narcissistic control freak, yeah.
And he's still alive, right? Like,
he's still alive. Yep, he is still alive. He's not doing well. I couldn't find what he's actually sick from. I didn't dig that deep to figure out what he's actually sick.
No, but he's in Southwood State Prison here in New Jersey, and it's horrible because of everything that he's done to everybody. He's just living. He's aging out himself. Like, he doesn't seem like that bad off. You know.
Yeah. So what I've seen, as we know, he was charged 25 to life for each one of the 3 girls he killed in New York. I honestly, I figured that's not really a lot of things I look into, is what they got for sentencing. One place I did see, though, said he got 937 years.
Wow.
I'm like, if that's the case, holy crap.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's a bit of overkill. Like there's no way he's gonna get out, even on technicalities, anything with that kind of a thing. There was a documentary called Crime Scene, The Times Square Killer. The Times Square Killer is another name for
Mhm.
Cottingham that he earned based on the location of some of the bodies. But that was on Netflix a while ago. I don't know if it's still there, but you might be able to search it.
Yeah, I watched the
Yeah,
trailer for it today.
yeah. There's a trailer. Yeah.
There is a really good interview on Spotify if you're into podcasts. It's not
Mm-hmm.
an interview, sorry. It's let's see if I can remember if I can
But
find what it was called. It's let me look
for
here.
the nerdies of Monchos, I do have a paper here that about one of the things that I'm very fascinated with that Jay covers for us often. Identification of psychosocial factors in the development of serial killers in the United States. In yeah, I'm just gonna link that there for those of you. It's a PDF for those of you that are curious as to the why and how. You know, this one was done by Tiffany Brennan. It was a thesis on it from Salem
Oh, I've
State
read that one.
University. It's
I read
quite
that one.
interesting.
That one's good.
It's a very interesting one because it's in layman terms, right? Jay,
Yeah.
is like it's very easy to understand where she's going with this, and it's a thesis paper. And it kind of like she was studying, of course, all of this, and she had to write her thesis on it. And I just think it quite put it all in a nutshell for me a little bit.
Yeah, just
Uh,
a quick scroll through. She mentions Eileen Wuornos, Richard Ramirez, Carl
uh,
Watts,
yep.
Keith
Yeah.
Hunter.
Keith
Uh,
Hunter, yep.
yeah.
Yeah, quite a few. And some of the, psychological patterns and behaviors that they all had in common. And she kind of ties some threads together. It's an interesting read. I'm not going to tell you it's all factual or proven in the statistics. I'm just going to say it's like quite interesting read, and it made sense, and it was in layman's term. Little bit of history there. There's a lot of percentages there to go by. Those of you that are a little nerdier like I am and just need a little bit more meat to home it in. Yeah.
I'm going to add that over here so I can look
Yeah.
that up again.
Yeah. I
Because
can
I've read
link
that
you.
before and I could never remember what it was. I got
Do
it
you
now.
want? I can send it to you though. Like here.
Oh,
Like,
I've got it.
okay. Okay. Good.
So
But
the podcast I was talking about, I found
mhm.
it's on Spotify, and I pull it up on my phone and pull it up on the computer to get the link. But it's called Serial Killer Richard Cottingham, the Times Square Killer documentary is by the True
Mhm.
Crime Podcast 2023.
Mhm.
Now this has real where to go? This is actual you hear things from his neighbors, his coworkers. Um, it's like watching a documentary on TV, but you're listening to it. So it's really good.
Yeah.
I've probably listened to that like 3 times.
They really do like when you mention the podcast because a lot
Mhm.
of those that follow me don't actually watch what I'm doing because I don't do a lot of presentation. It's mostly, podcasts. They're like doing other
Mhm.
things and listening as they go or playing us back.
Uh,
So
yeah,
I do like them too. The podcasts, they're much easier to
serial
listen.
killers. If you look up the podcast, serial killers got a good one on Richard Cottingham too.
Yeah.
Um,
All right.
I, I
I just dropped an information document in there for you guys from the district attorney in Nassau, New York. This was something that Jay brought forward for a lot of his information. We like to go with the law enforcement information and what they actually gathered. So that's pretty informative for you there too on him.
the
Cold
name of that
case.
podcast was it's the True Crime Podcast 2023. Real police interrogations, 911 calls.
Okay, there you go.
So just if you type in Richard Cottingham, for me it was the first one that popped up. It's got a picture of Santa. It's the thumbnail picture. So, and the guy that looks like Santa. So, it should be an easy one to find. Another one that was really good was Richard Cottingham, the torso killer from Killer Psyche, on Spotify. Also was a good one too.
Oh, that day.
So,
Well, do you have more that you wanted to address on this, or should we?
not on Cottingham. So, I mean,
No. All right.
there's some things
So,
we left out, but it wasn't really all that relevant.
Right. Are there questions in the chat? Let's go through and make sure that we have. Let's see if there's like,
You know what? There was something we didn't mention.
what was that?
One of the so Richard, which I can't believe I completely skipped over this. I didn't even have it in my notes. He would frequent gay bars and BDSM bars all over New York, and him and his wife actually quit having sex because he wanted to do things to her that she didn't want to do.
Oh, okay.
Turns out that some of the stuff that he wanted to do was the things that he actually did to his victims.
All right.
Was
So
one of the reasons.
he felt unjustly denied. This is his problem with women. He felt unjustly denied. Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to do certain things and get. I mean, she was okay with some, but then he started wanting to get really violent and, like, he was talking about maiming her and stuff, and she wasn't having none of that.
Oh, I mean, I can't really blame her. Like, you have 3 kids and you're with somebody all this time, and then boom, like what? No, I don't think so. Yeah. No. I do frown upon having my head and hands removed too, Juju. I just think that's a little excessive. Yeah, it's a little much. It's too much. No, I get it. Like, yeah. Well, oh gosh, yeah. I have no idea. I don't even know where to go with the questions on this one, because you did answer the one I had about the childhood and all. Because at the same time, they're saying it's normal. There's like, to me, there's things there that aren't. Like, he's a little bit antisocial. Okay. He's got a fixation with his mother. He's got problems with his father. I don't know.
Yeah, but he wasn't your typical fixation with his mother. It was from everything that I seen, unless you've seen something different, it was just your typical
I
mother
want to know.
son.
I want to
type
know
of
what the head cheerleader looked like in his high school. Okay, because as soon as he gets done, he's out there looking for brunettes with big chests, and they're all like of a younger age, like about the time he would have developed his sexual presence, his sexual need to have this control. So I'm thinking the victims are all between the ages of 15 and 19, and so was he when he developed this problem. You know what I'm saying?
That's quite possible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the way my little brain works there. Because, like, I just see an issue, and I think
No,
he goes to high
that's
school.
definitely a good point.
I want to know who turned him down and what you look like, woman, because, like, he's got a serious problem with issues. I think it started with you. Like, I do. Because, like, I do. I think because, like, even though they say he had a normal childhood and all, he definitely, by the time he gets to his own, you know, uh, elder adolescence, like towards the end of it, he's definitely got an issue. He says on his own accountants, he said that's when he started to look into things like bestiality and bondage and things like that, that he himself sought that out at that age, young. He says even earlier, like when he was a kid, but there's no evidence of it. There is evidence of it in his teenage years, but I don't know. It just, like, he was not dateable. He was not dateable. I'm wondering how many young girls went missing, like, while he was in high school. Like, there's a lot of
None.
people.
He said his first victim was until he was 21.
Mm.
And mind you, he's said he's killed over 100. So, and he's confessed to. So, I would believe that he didn't have a victim until he was 21.
I don't know. I don't tend to believe control freak narcissists at all.
But
actually,
but with his narcissism, he would want that known that he started young. It's not. I don't see it as something he would try to hide.
True. He wouldn't really like, but the number as far as 100, I don't know how true that is, because also as a narcissist, he would want the attention and the fame, and he's got to be like bigger than life to get it, because he doesn't want to be your average, your average serial killer.
At one point, he said he wanted to be the best serial killer there ever was.
Well, he's in jail, so I don't think he was. I don't know. They got him. So, and what does success is that body count? Because, like, we know of 11, he's saying 100, Well, we've got killers that are like way more than that, like way
Well,
more.
Bundy, I think the 73. I think he said,
Mm-hmm.
and they only tied him to like 12, or I think it was 12. It's been a while since I looked at Bundy. 23, I think. No,
Jay,
Gacy was 33.
Gacy was 33. I was going to say
Yeah.
that clown has got issues. He was prolific, actually. You've got a problem with the poll though. It's now even.
I
50.
know. I just seen that. I'm like 16
like,
votes, and it's 50-50.
Look like you're gonna have to do both videos. It is a coin toss. Which one you do first? Like, okay, well, maybe I would say there's 16 votes up there. There's 18 people watching. If you both vote and you both vote different, it's not going to change it. So I don't know. I don't know whether to tell you guys to like keep voting. I don't know. Mark says maybe because he couldn't find those things consensually, he sought them out through the crime. Exactly. Like they're saying that's what they're saying with the conversations with the wife that they got on file and everything, what it looks like. That's what Jay was talking about.
Raven had said too, he probably didn't have the courage and confidence till he was at least 21.
True.
The desire was probably there younger, but he just didn't have the courage.
And let's talk about the independence too, like being out from under the scrutiny of your parents. He probably got a job by then. He's got some money. He's got a vehicle. Yeah, a little more freedom to do what he wants in a very bad way.
Raven says it's been even since 12 votes.
Wow. It's a coin toss. Yep. It's a coin toss. Yes, on which serial killer he's going to do the video on. Absolutely.
Mom, we need one more person to vote.
Well, I don't know. Juju says it's all up to her, just like she said at the beginning. Just go with her. She says Kemper. I'll be deciding to vote. Kemper it is. There you go. She's just like she wants you to do Kemper, and I think you're passionate for Kemper. Like I can't vote because I wrote the poll, but if you count my vote, it's for Kemper.
I already voted, but I'm not telling you who I voted for.
You voted for Kemper. We know. Like we all know. Yeah, we all know.
Dennis Nielsen. I think we've covered Nielsen already, didn't we?
We did quite a while back, Cat Ninja. Like I used to stream with Jay quite a bit on his channel and my channel, and we did it. And I believe we did Dennis Nelson. But if I can find the video link, because it's probably far back. Here's the thing, Jay. I've been doing a lot of true crime. Like there's a lot. There's a lot. I should take the older ones out and put them in true crime review. Like I was just looking at that. Like I made a separate list for stuff like this, where they're the older ones that are already solved or partially solved.
Fred and Rose West. No, we haven't covered Fred and Rose West though.
No, we haven't. Cat.
Ted Bundy.
It's going to be Bundy. Okay, so Bundy first. And I'm going to add Fred and Rose West to the list, Cat Ninja, for lookbacks. That's a good one. Actually, we know that name. I mean, we did Catherine, the most prominent female serial killer. Like she was pretty out there. Did a skin suit, just like, Gain, kind of.
Robert Picton, that name.
Oh, yeah, Rabbits. I know this name. I'm going to write it down. I have to remember why I know this name, but I know this name.
Canadian serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the pig guy. The pig farmer.
The pig farmer. Did
we cover the pig farmer?
No, we talked about the pig farmer.
We talked about him, but we didn't cover him, yeah.
We knew about it. We talked about him when we did this little side thing about like movies that were based on real serial killers,
So the votes are in. 17 votes. Bundy wins by 1 vote.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll then. So we're going to leave it there for you. At least you have an answer. There you go. Okay. And that's it. Like it's Bundy. Going to be Bundy. All right. But, well, I think on that, we don't have any questions in there. All right. Pig farmer from Canada. Look at the tree. Said, yeah, absolutely. We're going to write those names down. And the Nielsen house.
That's a whole mess in its own right with the Picton story.
Yeah. Oh, the Nielsen house from Dennis Nielsen is being made into a family home. Really? Like,
Really?
oh, I would not want to live there.
Me either. They
That
would
kind
have
of
to
like,
completely
wow.
the entire plumbing and everything.
Yeah, all of it, you know. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Bundy will get you a lot of traction since the series. Oh, that's right. They just did do a series on that too, Jay. Ted Bundy. Yeah.
They do another one?
Yeah. What was that one called? Are you talking about the one a couple of years ago, Rabbits, or was there something like more recently? I think there were actually something just recently. I think I saw it come across my feed and I can't remember the name of it. Yes, Rocket Couch, the Cody Awards are still in voting. You did not miss anything. They're still going. There's 7 categories on the back of my channel in the community tab. And we have not got a date yet between all of us that are working on it. We're trying to organize all, you know, because we're in Australia, we're in the United States, and we're in England. And we're trying, and then everybody works and everybody's got all these other things. And we're trying to find the best time. But it will be sometime in January. We're still hoping, like, we're going to do it. So go get your votes in. You know, it keeps changing just a little bit, but I'm kind of happy for CoffeeZilla right now because it looks like he's going to get the awesome award for his work on SBF and Logan Paul and quite a few other scammers that he's done this year.
No, Mark, I didn't fart. I don't know what that was.
I don't know what that was. I
heard
don't
it
know what
too.
that was
I
either.
was just gonna let it go because
I'm like, I was
that?
gonna actually go. Are there any more questions? But now I'm scared. Like, Mark, like, so you know,
I heard it
Holmes,
too. I'm like, what is that?
Cat Ninja. We have definitely H Holmes. Like, we definitely, like, that's a name. That's a name to write down too. Like,
So that's all I got.
all right, that's it. I thank you so much, Jake. Like, let's do this again really soon. Like,
We can do it again.
Let's think of another one. Let's look at that list and we'll talk off and see what we're going to do. But good luck with that video. I'm sure everybody is actually looking forward to your video coming out on a serial killer. And like I said, everybody, if you haven't already subscribed, you're new to Jay, the link is down below near his name. Please get over there and sub so you know when this damn good video comes out on Ted Bundy. As you all voted, it will be Ted Bundy. All right. Otherwise, I will see everybody soon, like on the weekend. I'm going to take tomorrow off. I'm going to take tomorrow off. And you'll see Jay again soon, too. Yep. Don't forget, go sub to that channel. All right, everybody.
Be water, my friends.
Exactly.